What if everything you know about money is a carefully crafted lie? What if the inflation crushing your budget, the insane housing prices, and the feeling that the system is rigged aren't just accidents, they are symptoms? The official story is that we recovered from the 2008 crash, but what if we didn't? What if the entire financial system was secretly put on life support, and the clock is ticking down, hidden behind economic jargon most people ignore? This isn't a theory, it's a new financial reality, an illusion of stability built to make you feel secure while the foundation cracks. Before we expose how they did it, I need to know, where is our community watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. If you're ready for the unfiltered truth about where your money really went, you need to subscribe. What you're about to learn changes everything. Let us rewind to the most famous financial collapse in history, 1929. The story we retold is simple: wild speculation, a market crash, and then the Great Depression. Banks failed, people lost their life savings, and it was chaos. But the real story was in the hidden plumbing. Back then, the core loan market was the engine of speculation. Banks were lending insane amounts of money for stock purchases with no real backing. When confidence wavered, everyone demanded their cash at once. The system seized, the pipes froze. Now let's jump to 2008. The housing market collapses. But why? Because of a new form of hidden plumbing, the repurchase agreement, or repo market. This is where big banks lend each other billions of dollars every single night, using assets like mortgage-backed securities as collateral. It's the oil in the financial engine. And in 2008, when those mortgage-backed securities were revealed to be toxic, no bank would lend to another. The repo market froze. Sound familiar? It was 1929 all over again, but with complex derivatives instead of simple stocks. The response in 2008 was the Troubled Asset Relief Program, a visible, controversial but public bailout. The government stepped in and said, we will buy your toxic assets to unfreeze the system. It was a one-time emergency measure. We were told the system was fixed, regulations were put in place, and we moved on. But behind the scenes, the real fix wasn't a one-time bailout. It was the creation of a permanent, silent bailout system. A system where the Federal Reserve now acts as the ultimate, endless counterparty for the repo market, ensuring it never freezes again. They backstop the shadow banking system itself. Sound familiar? It's the same dynamic as the core loan market, but now the government is the permanent lender of last resort. Not for you, but for the world's largest financial institutions. And the scale. In 2008, the Fed's balance sheet ballooned to about $2 trillion to fight the crisis. Today, it's normalized at nearly $8 trillion. The temporary emergency measures never went away. They just got woven into the fabric of the system. Sound familiar? It's the ghost of 2008, now a permanent resident in our financial reality. So, how did they pull it off? How did they create this permanent bailout without a vote in Congress, without headlines on every news channel? The answer lies in a single, boring-sounding financial instrument that is the key to the entire illusion: the overnight reverse repurchase agreement facility. This is the secret tool. It sounds technical, but its purpose is shockingly simple. After 2008, the Fed needed a way to control the new system it had created. It couldn't just let banks run wild again. So, it built a trapdoor. The reverse repo facility allows the Fed to suck cash out of the financial system daily, controlling the price of money itself. It's the lever that makes this whole illusion possible. But to understand the true audacity of this scheme, you need to see the document that laid the groundwork. It wasn't a public law. It was a quiet, almost invisible change in policy that gave the Fed this unprecedented power. And you won't believe the name on the policy memo that opened the floodgates. Forget stocks, forget crypto. The real game, the one that runs the entire world, is happening in the shadows. It's called the repo market, a $4 trillion per day machine that you're not supposed to know about. Today, we're pulling back the curtain. So what is it? Think of it as a pawn shop for billionaires. Every night, big banks need cash. So, Bank A goes to Bank B and says, hey, lend me $1 billion until tomorrow morning. I'll give you this US Treasury bond as collateral, like leaving my watch at the pawn shop. In the morning, Bank A pays back the billion, plus a tiny bit of interest, and gets its bond back. This happens trillions of times, every single day. It's the grease that keeps the gears of the entire global financial system turning. Without it, everything freezes. And in 2008, it did. The problem was, when Bank A went to pawn its collateral, it wasn't a shiny treasury bond. It was a worthless, toxic mortgage-backed security, a fake gold-painted brick. When Bank B figured this out, it screamed, I'm not lending you a dime. Panic spread. The entire global pawn shop shut down. The financial system had a massive heart attack. This is where the story you know ends, and the real story begins. The Federal Reserve stepped in and made a promise. They said, don't worry, we'll be the pawn shop now forever. They created a permanent bailout system. Here's how it works. The Fed set up two main windows. The first is the repo facility, where the Fed lends cash to banks, no questions asked. But the second one, the reverse repo facility, or RRP, is where it gets really sinister. At this window, the Fed actually borrows cash from banks, hedge funds, and money market funds. In return, the Fed gives them its own pristine collateral. Now, why is this a secret bailout? It's all in the numbers. This mechanism allows the Fed to artificially set a floor under interest rates, preventing them from going to zero or negative. But the cost is staggering. The Fed has become the counterparty to over 60% of all repo transactions. The so-called free market for lending between banks, it's dead. The government is the market now, and it's not just banks, your money is involved. At one point, over $130 billion were flowing into this facility from just two money market funds, Fidelity and Vanguard. That's right, the cash in your safe money market fund is being used in this scheme. At its peak in December of 2022, the reverse repo facility was soaking up over $2.5 trillion in cash every single day. Let that sink in. That's more than the entire 2008 top bailout, happening daily, quietly in the background. By 2023, the Fed was paying a whopping 5.3% interest on this facility. They were handing out a risk-free yield to the largest financial players on the planet. And who pays for that interest? You do this as your inflation. It's your tax dollars being funneled directly to Wall Street, rewarding them for the very failures that broke the system in the first place. You might be asking, is this even legal? Well, they made it legal. The key was a quiet change to Section 14 of the Federal Reserve Act, pushed through in a 2009 policy memo. And who was the architect? A man named Timothy Geithner, then president of the New York Fed, the same guy who oversaw the AIG bailout and the secret bank loans in 2008. Before he even became Treasury Secretary, he was building the architecture for this permanent bailout. We have the receipts. This is the grand illusion. The system isn't healthy, it's parasitic. It survives only by creating the perception of stability. The greed we saw in 2008 hasn't gone away. It's been institutionalized, automated, and hidden in plain sight. The Fed's balance sheet is the life support machine, and the reverse repo is the dial they turn to keep the patient alive. This creates a moral hazard of epic proportions. Banks no longer fear a run, because they know Uncle Sam will always be there to pawn their toxic assets. They are incentivized to take on more and more risk, creating bigger and bigger bubbles. Your savings, your pension, your money market account, it's all implicitly tied to this multi-trillion-dollar game of musical chairs. The music hasn't stopped yet, but when it does, there are no chairs. The stakes are infinitely higher than in 2008. The system is bigger, more complex, and more interconnected. The next collapse won't be a subprime mortgage problem. It will be a systemic failure of the very financial plumbing that we are now told can never fail. The illusion of money is that it has value because our government says so. The reality is that its value is now backed by a desperate, permanent bailout of a shadow system that has already proven its instability. We are all living on borrowed time in a state of collective denial, trusting the very institutions that are engineering the next, greater crisis. They didn't fix the problem. They just socialized the risk and privatized the gains. So I'll leave you with this question. Are we any wiser now, or are we just walking the same path to collapse? This time wearing better suits and using more sophisticated jargon. If this video exposed the cracks in the world you thought you understood, then you need to be part of this conversation. Share this with one person who needs to see the truth. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. The curtain is being pulled back, and it's time we all saw what's really behind it.